is a small request to you all that you please mute your audio and videos. Okay, because it will be a disturbance to the resource person as well as to the other participants also. So I request all of you to please first mute your audios and then videos also, right? So I was saying that from tomorrow onwards we need to introduce our resource persons. I'll inform you by mail and by phone to who should be introducing whom, and you have to give the vote of thanks also to the resource person. Okay, so this is the practice which we usually do during our offline, but online it is more easier, what I personally feel, right? So our resource person has already come, and most of our participants have also joined us. If any issue, if anything is there, you just mail to us. Okay, you just mail to us, right? Madam, shall we start, madam?
Sir, can you see the presentation, sir?
Absolutely, madam.
Okay.
Madam, you enlarge it, madam. Slide share. Go for slide share, madam.
Go for slide share. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Now is it better, sir?
Press F5, madam.
F5,
Madam,
F5,
press
F5.
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 Okay.
Ah,
Okay.
F5.
Okay. No. Sorry. It's not happening, sir.
No, madam.
F5. Um,
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver speaks descriptions of items on the screen and
something called voiceover is starting. Something called voiceover is starting. Let me see what I can do.
No, madam.
What are you doing? Go to the full thing.
Madam, with the permission of the director of the HRDC, even maximizing the screen also, you can show the it's a larger extent, madam.
Okay, so 1 second. I'm just doing that. Is this okay?
Yeah, now it is fine.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay. So I can't see myself. I hope you can see me.
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Okay.
Right. Shall I start, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So good morning, friends. Today we have Dr. Purnima Nagaraja. She is a psychiatrist and working at the Dhriti Hospitals and Wellness Clinic. And as a psychologist, she has a passion with psychological illness and cure. Started with watching her psychiatrist parents, Dr. A. Nagaraja and Dr. Mrs. Jaya Nagaraja, as a child. Armed with a medical degree, a diplomat in psychiatry, and a master's degree in counseling and psychotherapy. Dr. Purnima has trained in England and brings with her an international perspective of addressing psychological ailments. Being multilingual and well versed in several cultural and sociological factors, Dr. Purnima combines conventional therapies such as drug therapies with unique counseling and psychotherapeutic techniques. In a country like India, where several taboos exist while dealing with psychological illness, Dr. Purnima has conducted several awareness drives to familiarize the lay person with common psychiatric and psychological ailments. She is currently involved with several media houses in busting common myths and encourages people to come forward and deal with psychological ailment as any they would any other. With an ongoing passion to provide excellence in psychological support system, Dr. Purima founded Dhriti, an institute that focuses primarily on the individuals and various issues that confront them. So I think in this COVID situation, as yesterday we have been discussing about the gender violence, because this has created a sort of psychological illness among the people, and a kind of what you call the low, we say the psychological or mental low which we say has crept in among many of the people across the globe. So I think Dr. Purnima Nagaraja will give us a perspective about, I mean, gender mental health, wherein how to deal with different types of genders in different situation. Madam, on behalf of Academic Staff College and myself and participants, I welcome you to this session on gender perspective in mental health.
Thank
And
you.
I hand over the mic to you. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everybody. And I hope we are all bright and active in spite of all these COVID fears. I'm glad that all of you have actually taken the trouble to log in and receive this kind of training. It has been a tradition for me to come here every year, and this is probably the first time that I'm doing it online. Otherwise, having a cup of tea in the HRD office and having a wonderful homemade lunch and taking classes for all of you has always been almost like a tradition for me. And I miss it so much. Even today, I miss standing on a podium in front of all of you and talking. But since we are now in a new world with new rules, I'm here today online talking to all of you. The topic that I'm going to pick is gender perspectives in mental health. As we all know that gender plays a very important role in everything. For example, for the same amount of work, if you're looking at a manual laborer, the same amount of work, a man gets more, at the end of the day, and the woman makes less at the end of the day. When a woman is employed in an office, they ask her, when are you planning to get married? When will you have children? How much leave do you want? And in fact, a lot of women in the marriageable age or newly married women, though they're highly qualified and they fit the post, they are not employed in the private sector because we have to give them maternity leave, we have to give them maternity benefits. Whereas a man, the questions that a man is asked is like, depending on the subject and the kind of job that he will be doing. But for a woman, there are people who make even personal remarks. Oh, you're going to wear Western clothes and come to the office. Do you believe in traditions? This is none of anybody's business. But nevertheless, we are in a world where a woman is questioned for her morals and her character, and a man is questioned for his knowledge of the subject. I'm not making any feminist remarks over here. I'm just stating what is actually happening in the world around us. As we all know that domestic violence, 85 to 90% of domestic violence is directed by a man to a woman, and about say 10 to 15% of men are also victims of domestic violence. Mental health issues also, many of them are gender specific, and the way the recovery happens, the way people go for help is also very gender specific. Having said all this, now I'm just starting to go to the first picture. This is way back in the early 1900s, where it was believed that woman is the cause of all mental illness, and that it is only because women are there on this earth that there is mental illness. And they all believed that the woman's organs, that is uterus and ovaries, they were the cause of all mental illness. So if you notice, there's a little box in which a woman has been kept inside. And these used to be, like this for 40 to 50 days, sometimes even up to 3 or 4 months. They would be allowed out once a day only to go to the toilet. So they were not even allowed to take a bath. So just imagine how it was, in those days where only the neck is sticking out. So these are the topics I'm going to be dealing with today: gender differences, health-seeking behavior, mental disorders, psychosocial support available for the genders, sex and violence, marginalization, and the problems that a girl child faces. As we know that today we don't have only one gender, difference, that is, previously it was only male and female, and now we have something called a third gender. And there are a lot of mental health issues and a lot of issues that the third gender faces also. Now, again, if you see here, this is in the 60s, 50s and 60s, where a woman was institutionalized. The minute she had some mental health illness, she was institutionalized. The head used to be shaved. If you notice, she's got and a uniform used to be given to them. Most of these uniforms were extremely revealing. If you notice, it's just a frock, very short above the knees, and it is be tied in the back, just like an operation gown. They used to have no clothes inside, and there was no help given to them. Even when they had their periods, the blood would be just coming out and soiling the bed sheets and soiling their clothes, and nobody would even enter the room. There is a small vent on the bottom of the door where the food used to be pushed inside. What is not visible in this room is a small WC. There's a closet where she used to have her daily bowel movements. Once a week, they would be brought out. All of them used to be stripped naked, put into a room, and a high power hose, what firemen use, high pressure hose, used to be directed at all of them. And that is their bath. And a small piece of soap, one soap used to be cut into about maybe 10 or 15 pieces, and one tiny little piece used to be given to each of them. See, this sounds like a concentration camp, is it not? The same thing used to happen in the German concentration camps. And the same thing used to happen in the institutions, the so-called institutions. If you see, this is not in India, this is in a foreign country. It could be Europe or America. And just to let you know that, it's not just in our country that there is a stigma for mental health. All over the world, even today, stigma exists. And you can discuss anything at a dining table, but not your mental illness. For example, if you sat at a table with all your colleagues and said, actually, I'm having diabetes, or I'm having hypertension, people say, "Hey, poor guy, really, is that true?" Or if you have a fracture on your arm, it's visible, and people say, "Oh, can I help you? And can I do something to make your life comfortable?" But if you just sat at that same table in front of 10 colleagues and said, "I'm suffering with depression," there will be silence. Nobody wants to listen, nobody wants to talk. And then they don't know what to do with you. There's a danger that you might not have your job after a few weeks. There is a danger of being invalidated in all your decisions. There is a danger that people will always ask you, "How are you feeling?" "Oh, you're okay." "Oh, okay. Have you been admitted? Did you take any shocks?" So mental illness is treated with a great amount of stigma and a great amount of fear that what is this person going to do? Nobody understands that mental health is the same as physical health. If you will rush to a doctor for a stomach ache, you should rush to a doctor if you're not feeling good in your head. If you have depression, if you have anxiety, if you have any other problem, the same level of medical care should be sought after. But people don't go because people are afraid that you will be labeled or stigmatized. And there is a lot of rumors that float in the market. Oh, psychiatric medicines, they have side effects. Which medicine does not have side effects? Even homeopathy, Ayurveda, Unani, all of these things have got some side effect for a person to who it doesn't suit. Is it not? But we talk only of side effects of psychiatric medicines. In fact, your antihypertensives, I'm a diabetic for 22 years, and I'm a very young diabetic. As a matter of fact, I was 32 when I got diabetes. Since then, I've been taking tablets, and the tablets which I'm taking are harmful to my kidneys and to my liver. But I'm still taking it. I don't dare miss it, because if I miss even one tablet, I know my sugar will shoot up. Nobody talks about that, and those side effects are terrible. You see, I have a low-level gastritis that my stomach burns. Since 22 years, I've been putting up with hyperacidity only because of this tablet. Those are also side effects, and those are also serious side effects. So in psychiatric medicines also, not all of them have side effects, but some of them certainly do. And we have to weigh the pros and cons. But the rumors that float are saying that these are all sleeping pills, you will get addicted to them, you cannot live without them, and you will get all kinds of side effects like your heart, your lungs, all kinds of silly rumors. Then the other rumor that goes is that this is nothing. This is, you're only pretending. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just trying to get attention. The third thing that people say is that you must be possessed, and they will drag you to some temple or masjid or something and have you cleansed of your spirits by cutting nimbus on your head, or some people get slapped, some people get beaten. Okay, and there are places where they're tied to a tree or someplace for days on end. So this is the state of mental illness. So many people with mental health issues have lost their properties. have lost their belongings, have lost all their human rights only because they have mental health issues. Again, here women are bigger sufferers. The divorce rates for women with mental illness is very high. The divorce rates for women with mental illness following delivery is extremely high, whereas there's hardly any divorce rates for men with mental illness. And while women are the ones who suffer in any relation, the rates of domestic violence on people with mental illness is very high. The rates of marital rape and other atrocities, sexual atrocities on women with mental illness is very, very high. I'm going to the next slide. So the WHO views gender as an extremely important determinant of mental health. Both women and men experience the world in different ways, and that is very visible, isn't it? They say it's a man's world or it's a woman's world, okay? And because we experience the world in different ways, we suffer mental illness also are different. Like if a man is depressed, he would display different signs, and if a woman is depressed, she would have different signs, because the woman's duties in the house are different, the man's duties in the outside world are different. So even though we live in the same world, we have different experiences of education, different experiences of life, different experiences of marriage, different experiences of our duties on earth as we are alive. And therefore, the expression of a mental illness is also different for a man and different for a woman. I hope this concept is clear. Okay. For example, if you are looking at suicide, worldwide, women attempt more, men actually commit suicide more. So if there's a death, it's very likely to be a man. So you must have heard of all these techie deaths and all these people from the IT industry hanging themselves, and the recent movie stars also. If you look at all the film stars who have committed suicide, most of them are men. Let it be Williams or let it be the recent Sushant. All of these are men. The very few women who have actually attempted and committed suicide, and probably the most famous of that is Silk Smitha, who was a dancer on films. So there are a few women, but most of them are men. So women always hold back, even if they take something to die or try to hang themselves. Suddenly they'll remember their children, their families, okay, and then they will come back to their senses and say, save me right now, okay. Or it may be something more impulsive. They might say, just in a fit of anger, husband is shouting at them, so in a fit of anger they might want to kill themselves. But for a man, it's a more planned event, because he has all the circumstances which are going against him. He feels that he cannot survive, and even taking help, there is a stigma for men to take help. So a man's suicide is always a complete job. To use a very bad word, it's called a successful suicide. I don't know who coined that word, but it is called a successful suicide. Whereas women, they attempt more. Sorry, I'm just going to the next slide. So we have a lot of stereotypes about how a woman should be. We say that आड़वाड़ undali. So like औरत को औरत जैसे रहना है, and ये तो मर्द वाली बात है, या नहीं तो ये मगवाल प्रपंचम. So the way people view men is a breadwinner. Men should suppress their emotions. Men should be strong at all times, both physically, emotionally, mentally, in every way. And the sole onus of being the financial provider for his aging parents, for his own family and children, is on the man. In a typical Indian or a typical world setup. Whereas for a woman, she's supposed to be beautiful, she's supposed to be fair, she's supposed to have long hair, she's supposed to wear flowers, she's supposed to be a good cook, she's supposed to be a good housekeeper, she's also supposed to be somebody who takes care of her own children, her husband, her in-laws, her own parents. She's supposed to do the housework. So you see the level of pressure on a woman. That's why women fall apart a lot more. And a woman is also supposed to be sacrificing her own life for her family the minute she gets married. So whether it is career, whether she's an educated person, I know many people who are PhDs and very highly qualified people who are staying at home. And whenever I ask them, why are you at home? You are so highly qualified. You should be, you should help the world, because it is not only about you working. Because by you working, you're helping so many other people. So they say, actually, my husband doesn't like me to work, or my husband's family doesn't like me to work. So you see, these are all issues that that actually come in the way of a woman's good mental health. So because of this reason, most women are depressed, and in fact, depression is called a woman's disease. Anxiety, OCD, all of these things are linked to women. The other thing is domestic violence, which is very rampant in the world, whether it's emotional abuse or physical abuse, sexual abuse. All of these things are directed at women. As a matter of fact, even child sexual abuse. See, you have 1 in 4 children girl children who could be sexually abused, where 1 in 10 boy child who could be sexually abused. So even there, you see, the preponderance is more towards women. Pornography is more directed at women. Trafficking is more directed at women. You see, prostitution, 80% of them are women, and the other 20% are usually transgenders. Men are very few men are actually prostitutes. So if you're looking at all these things, you see how much the burden on a woman is, and how much the equal burden, emotional burden on a man is. So I'm not saying that this is one is better than the other, but yes, it is a man's world today, and men definitely have it a lot easier. People try to understand them a lot better. The support system that they get is a lot more. For example, if a boy had a seizure, like fits, he would get all the help. And he would be taken to a doctor, he would be taken all the CT scans and all the EEGs, everything will be taken. Whereas if a woman has a seizure disorder, she will not be taken anywhere, because if people come to know, she will not get married. So even if she develops something after marriage, it is linked to something before her marriage, and there is a divorce hanging in her throat. Third gender people are even worse. They have no gender. So if they get help, where do they get admitted? To a male ward or to a female ward? We don't even today, we don't have a ward for transgenders. We don't even have a toilet for them. So if they go to a shop and they want to use the toilet, where do they go? If they go to the men's toilet, they're kicked out. If they go to the women's toilet, they're kicked out. And when it comes to health, they're not considered even human beings. For even major physical illness, they are denied admission into hospitals. They are denied medical help. So if you're going to ask me this question, is there really a link between mental health, gender, and inequality? I would say yes, 100% there is a link. So it's not all the same, that mental illness is not mental illness. Any form of illness is not just any form of illness. It is something big. And we have to understand because of the link between mental health and gender, we also have to understand what the curative rates are, how the treatment occurs, how the world views such a person, how they actually view themselves, what are the risks they have, because of this mental health issues. All of these things contribute to a higher level of inequality between the genders. So here, let me just take you through a few people, very famous people who had mental health illness. As we know, Florence Nightingale, the mother of modern nursing, she worked for years with the leprosy patients, and she actually, the woman with the lamp is what she was called. And towards the end of her days, she developed obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. She believed that there were germs all over her body, and that she was contaminated. She never got down from her bed, and she died because she never even got down from her bed to pass urine or motion. And she died a terrible death because of mental illness, dealing with probably so much sickness all her life with nobody to talk to or nobody to tell her emotions to. She herself suffered mental health issues. So here, let me just tell you, women are more likely to be diagnosed with a mental health problem than men. And this is more than 40%. This 40% is a statistic 5 years ago. I'm sure the statistic is much more now. And particularly, even if you're looking at COVID issues, now that we are, suffering with this anxiety because of COVID, or more than 60% of women are the ones who are seeking help, calling people and saying, look, I'm having anxiety, I'm afraid I will get COVID, please help me. The men are trying to be very strong about it, but more men have got hidden depression and more women have got very visible type of depression. So women have higher rates. Can you all hear me? Am I clear?
Yes,
Yeah,
madam.
absolutely,
You can.
madam.
Yes,
Very
madam. You
much
can.
clear.
Okay.
Very much clear.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, madam. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So women have higher rates of depression, anxiety, eating disorders, suicidal behavior, pain disorders, hysteria, neurosis, and OCD. Let me explain these terms very quickly. Depression and anxiety, you know the meaning. Eating disorders, women, that need to be perfect, the perfect shape, perfect body. So people will eat and again vomit. It's called anorexia and bulimia. And then suicidal behavior, you already know. Pain disorders. A woman is more likely to get a headache, a stomach ache, a backache, a body ache, and complain and go to physicians repeatedly, having body pains. When actually it is depression and it is coming out in the form of body pain. Then hysteria. Hysteria is what we see. We have seen it during Bonalu, where people suddenly get possessed, people start screaming. All of these things is called hysteria. And the word hysteria also has got a very funny origin. Hysteria, histros is the uterus. So people believe that uterus was, used to travel to different parts of the body. So when a woman's uterus traveled to her head, she would get headache. If it traveled to her shoulder, she would get shoulder pain. If she traveled to her stomach, she would get stomach pain. So people believe that all, like I told you before, all the cause of mental illness was because of the uterus. The other one is neurosis, again, where people are very afraid of sickness or very afraid of, any form of illness. Continuously they get headaches, continuously they are, nervous and anxious. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Nowadays it's become a joke in all the films also. People are, if you're all Telugu speaking, then you probably have watched Sharvanand's film in which he has OCD. He has problems washing his hands and he doesn't like to touch people. So these are all mental health illness. Fortunately, now that people are able to come out with mental health issues even in films in an anecdotal manner, which is making it more user friendly. So if you just say that this film Mahanubhavudu was having the man having OCD, you say, oh yes, that's what I have also. So because of that, we are able to discuss mental health today across the table. In fact, when Tare Zameen Par came, my life had become so much easier because convincing parents that the child has got hyperactivity problem, that the child has some developmental disorder, the child has some learning disorder used to be very difficult for me. Because people used to be in denial. How dare you label my child? My child is perfect. Even though the child is not able to write ABCD, the child is tearing up things, extremely destructive and violent. So, but when that movie came, so many parents came back to me and said, thank you, madam. We never realized until we saw this film that what you're saying is correct. So sometimes you see films can actually, really be something that helps us with dealing with mental health issues. And I'm glad that the world has expanded to um, doing all these things. For example, there was this movie called Daddy where the man is autistic. It was, I think, Vikram who acted it. It was a copy of an English film, and where he's autistic and he's not very normal, and he faces some issues because of that. The custody of his children, daughter, because of that. So there are all issues which are related to mental health issues. For a woman, the divorce rate is the first thing that a woman needs to deal with. A, she will never get married if she has a mental health issue. B, if at all she is married and she develops a problem that she's facing a divorce, she's losing custody of her own children, and she will be abandoned. A woman is more likely to be abandoned because of mental illness. There is a very high likelihood of domestic violence in a woman with mental illness. There is a very high likelihood of abuse, both emotional and sexual, in women with mental health issues. So these are all the gender-specific risk factors. One is socio-economic disadvantage. Women are always dependent on men. I'm talking about the average woman. I'm not talking about all of us who are working and are financially independent. Let me also tell you here that there are many people who are highly educated, earning more than their spouses, but are financially dependent because they don't have the freedom to use their own money. Even if they want 100 rupees to buy sanitary napkins, they have to beg their in-laws. So this is the state of affairs in this country particularly. So there is a lot of socioeconomic disadvantage. There is gender discrimination by society in the sense that a woman can't do certain things. This is a man's job. This is a woman's job. If a man is helping his wife, he says, "Chuda pen ke baitho." You're not a man. A woman is told that your place is in the kitchen. And all of these things. Income inequality, as I've already mentioned to you, uh, whether it comes from an executive or to a manual laborer, men are paid more. And this is even in a country like United States, in a country like Australia, and in Europe, wherein we expect that there is more, equality, gender equality over there, but it is the same. And as I said, low rate of financial independence, perceived lower status of women. So woman is always what we call the weaker sex. The minute you say that she is the weaker sex, you expect her to be physically weak, mentally weak, emotionally weak in every way. Oh, what can women do? They can only cry. So you see the way the woman is looked down upon also. It is not that somebody wants to look down upon a woman. It's just that over years, over centuries, the society has perceived a woman in the same way. In the olden days also, women of royal family should be very good managers. They should be very good at needlework, and that's about it. Nothing was really expected of them. And that's the reason why we look up to Jhansi Ki Rani, we look up to Bhagmati, all these people as extremely powerful women, because the rest of the women were not powerful. That's why we remember these people, Taramati, and we are looking, of course, Mastani. All of these people were perceived as extremely strong women, because in an era where women were all cute and sitting sitting behind pardas, these women actually came out of the parda and fought. Then again, we're looking at physical vulnerability. Yes, physically we are weak, is it not? Definitely, a man is taller, has got more muscle mass, more bone mass. So definitely, we are, physically. Even if you have to lift a suitcase, we would want somebody to help us because we can't lift it ourselves. So there is physical vulnerability. Okay, and of course, this is, I think, something that all the women in the group can understand. It's an overburden of caring responsibilities. The minute a woman is married, she has to take care of in-laws. She has to forget her parents' house. She has to have children whenever people ask her to have her children, not when she wants to have. She should give up her career. She should give up her quality of life. She should sacrifice even the food in her plate to be able to take care of her family. And this is something that is, and we take the examples of Sita, Sati Savitri. These are examples that we take when we talk about a woman and her caring responsibilities. That a woman has no choice but to care. So this can be at some point, it can be an overburden. Now here in modern times, women are working, but still the caring responsibilities are not shared. The man comes home to a cup of tea, the woman comes home to cooking and cleaning and washing dishes and taking care of the in-laws. I'm not saying that, I'm not making any judgments here. Please get that very clear, that I'm not saying this is right or this is wrong. We are only trying to define what is happening in society that makes a woman vulnerable to mental illness, that makes a transgender person vulnerable to mental illness, and what are the things that make a man vulnerable to mental illness. We are only doing that. So today, I'm only going to outline, and I'm going to I hope that you go home and start thinking about um, the world around you, and what is happening, and how likely are we to succumb to some kind of mental health issue, which can decrease the quality of our lives. Then we have a societal rejection of the girl child, famous in India, a female infanticide. Doctors in the north apparently are beaten up if they don't give the sex of the child, even though it's a criminal offense to talk about the gender of the child. So all of these factors, what they have in common is the fact that it's in an unequal world for women and men. And of course, like I said, transgenders are not even considered human beings, but I'm going to keep on mentioning them because today they are a force to reckon with. And we have to also now acknowledge that there is a third gender and that they have to be given equal opportunities, equal people is still many decades away, at least some opportunities to survive. Now, having said the fact that inequality is one of the largest reasons why there are mental health issues in the world, not all of them are linked to inequality. For example, there are a lot of challenging life events, such as abuse. Child sexual abuse can happen to men and women, to the girl child as well as the boy child. Previously, it used to happen only to the girl child. Now, even to the boy child. Bereavement, death of a person. See, suppose a woman loses her husband, suddenly she loses the support. She is not allowed to stay in her in-laws' house. She has to go back to her parents' house with the children. Nobody talks about her financial settlements or anything. Abandonment, as I told you, people with mental health issues are abandoned. Boys are abandoned, girls are abandoned, children are abandoned by parents. Today, abandoning children, it's easy, just like abandoning probably a pet on the road. There is a village near Karnool, wherein the parents both go away to different states to work, and the children are just left behind, totally abandoned. If there is an aged grandparent, well and good. Otherwise, there is only one child taking care of another child, and it could be a toddler taking care of an infant. There was a huge news study on this, and they found that most of the children have mental health issues because of abandonment, behavioral problems, and depression. Tiny little children having depression because they don't see their parents, there is nobody there, and they have to fend for themselves, beg for their food. That's how bad it is. Yes, divorce. Men facing divorce, women facing divorce. Again, women face more divorce than men, but still, it is a life event which can be very traumatic. For a woman, again, we have hormonal issues like menarche, childbirth, menopause. These are all huge issues. Okay, so the woman's mental health cycle actually can change throughout their life. The mental health itself can be a cycle. Some people can have issues just around their period. Some people have major issues around childbirth. Then menopause is a very big issue. You cause an empty nest syndrome. Children have gone away. Husband has got a life of his own. Woman is lonely. All of these things, you see, these are life events, and this is the life cycle a woman goes through. So mental health also undergoes the same cycle. So I'm just going to show you a few pictures of some celebrities. Chester Bennington is a very well-known rock star who was suffering depression for several years. He had everything he could possibly want. He had money, he had fame, he was a part of an extremely famous band, and he had millions of adoring fans. But that inside, he had a monster inside his head, which he could not get rid of, and ultimately he suffocated and he killed himself. So many rock stars in the pinnacle of their fame have overdosed on sleeping pills or hanged themselves, and they have died. Today, Sushant Singh, we still don't know why the boy died. There's a huge mystery that surrounds this boy's death. Same way we have in our own state, we have Uday Kiran who passed away, we have Ranganath who hanged himself. So there are several film stars and celebrities who killed themselves because they didn't think that life was worth living. And that is the hallmark of depression, and that is the kind of pressure even celebrities are under. So we might always think, what's wrong with them? They have everything. They have money, they have fame, they have a great life. They can buy anything they want, go wherever they want. Why are they killing themselves? So this is, and the answer to that is that no matter what you have, when you have a mental health issue, it robs you of the quality of your life. And that's the reason why we have to fight mental illness, and we have to fight this gender bias, and make sure that our own mental illness, mental health is in a very viable state so that we can deal with the troubles of the world. Now, I'm going to talk to you about health-seeking behavior. So, health-seeking behavior is like when you're not well, seeing a doctor. That is, you're seeking health. There are people who go to primary health centers, there are people who go to doctors, there are people who go to corporate hospitals. So this is called health-seeking behavior. So in this, again, there is a gender difference here also. Women are very likely to report discomfort. If there's anything wrong, they will tell. Men will not tell. Why? Because you can't be a man and be having discomfort. See, most of us are, of rural origin. 60% of India is still from the villages, where a man is considered a big thing, mard ka bachcha, right? Even in our films, we have such big dialogue, right? Maa ka doodh piya ho, to tu mard hai, to aise karo, waise karo. So these are all difficult situations imposed on men. So a man who is having a mental health issue, forget about mental health, even a physical health issue, will not go because it will be considered weak. Okay. But a woman, she will at least report it. Whether she's allowed to go or not is a different issue. Most of the health services that we have, whether it's Anganwadi, whether it is our ASHA workers, whether it's our Sakhi centers, all of these things focus on a woman's reproductive health while neglecting all other illnesses. If a woman has tuberculosis, she won't get, but if she has any reproductive issue like, not getting pregnant, infertile, repeated abortions, she will get immediate medical help. Whether it is India or in any other part of the world, in all the developed countries also, focuses on a woman's reproductive health and not on her mental health or any other part of physical health. The other thing is, in conservative countries like ours, some subjects, in some specialities, there are no female practitioners. For example, surgeons are all men. Okay, most of them are men. Physicians, most of them are men. Orthopedic surgeons, most of them are men. So if a woman, say, has a hip fracture, a young woman has a hip fracture, she will not be taken because a man is going to examine her. So lack of female practitioners also creates a barrier. If you notice, all the female practitioners are gynecologists. A few of us are psychiatrists, of course. And the other thing is, there is no privacy or confidentiality. If a woman in the family, in the joint family setup, has got some health issue, the whole family will know within 5 minutes. So that's the reason why they don't like to go. So sometimes, even when they're sick, we have seen it in so many ads and so many films, that even if the woman is sick, she has to wake up, get up, do all the work, take care of the old people, make all the tiffin dabbas, sweep the house, wash the clothes. So that's the reason why women are more sick than men, because the caregiving responsibilities are still there. The other thing is, they need permission. As I told you before, can I go to the doctor? Will you give me money? And there are times when a husband, in the lower socioeconomic strata might say, I don't want to give you the money. You think I'm here only to earn and, take money from your mother and father. So these are all very common things. We've all come across this. Your maid in the house might be having this problem. She might be having an alcoholic husband who doesn't give her any money and beats her. So if she has a health issue, she will come and beg you for money, but not for her own husband, because she doesn't get that kind of help. And if there are doctors in the house, the maids will always be there. Or something else. So my maids, my domestic help always surround me, saying that, my husband has got this, my husband's brother has got this, please give me some tablets. But at least they're asking. Okay. So even in insurance policies and in healthcare and support systems, the women are always, right last on the list. If you buy an insurance policy, all the women out there, you'll say pregnancy related, sorry, we don't cover it. Any issues that are related to children in the first 5 years of their life, not covered. If you don't cover reproductive health for a woman in an insurance policy, why the hell are we taking an insurance policy? Because that is a maximum place where women need. And again, they will also say psychiatric illnesses, sorry, we don't support. So even if we see a patient, we have to write down, we exclude the psychiatric part, and we'll say there was some orthopedic problem. And what are the other health issues? We will list all of that, but psychiatric, we will not list because they will not get their reimbursements. This is the state of affairs in this country and in most countries, particularly in this country. You don't dare report a mental health issue because even the insurance companies, they don't support it. Having said all of this, patriarchy rules, and because of patriarchy, men are denied, any kind of help. You're not a man. You're very vulnerable. How can you be vulnerable to mard hai? So the perception of a man in our society, right from a tribal background all the way up to the big metros in developed countries, a man will not seek help, which is why men actually commit suicide, because if they're having a little bit of depression, if they take help, most of their problems would be gone. But because they're not taking help, it reaches a point where suicide is the only answer. So now you understand why men commit suicide where women attempt suicide. For a woman, it is a cry for help. Look at me, I'm trying to commit suicide, please take me for help. For a woman, it's a cry for help. For a man, it's an escape from all the worldly problems that he's been facing. See the difference in the thought process itself. A woman is seeking help, whereas a man doesn't want help and he just wants to end it and just put a cut to it because he can't handle it anymore. So even there, the thought process itself, there is a gender difference. So I'll just run you through this. I've already said this, but depression, OCD, pain, neurotic disorders, eating disorders, body dysmorphic disorders is when you're unhappy with your body, and people keep going for plastic surgery to improve their body. The most famous person with body dysmorphic disorder was the late Sridevi actress. She was unhappy with her nose, and she went through so many operations that towards the end of her life, her nostrils were very big and the entire bridge of the nose had collapsed. The other person with body dysmorphic disorder, another very famous celebrity with body dysmorphic disorder, was Michael Jackson. He did not like his black color, and he also did not like the fact that he was of black origin and not of Caucasian origin. So he used to get his nose. If you look at his early videos, the nose is like a typical person who is of African origin. And later on, he became extremely fair. He straightened his hair, and he had a straight nose to the extent that that nose actually collapsed and there was a hole in his face, and he used to use a plastic prosthesis. So this is how bad body dysmorphic disorder can be. Postpartum psychosis is psychiatric illness that is after delivery. Premenstrual syndrome, whereas premenstrual depression and anxiety is very common when a woman is going to have her menses. And all stress-related disorders, these are all common in women. Very famous lady, Virginia Woolf. She was a novelist. She was a playwright. She was a public speaker. She was a crusader for women's rights. Turns out she had mental illness and she committed suicide. So, having said, spoken about the common mental health issues in women, I'm also going to be talking about common mental health issues in men: alcoholism, drug abuse, psychopathic behavior, that is antisocial personalities, schizophrenia, wherein people hear voices, they feel that people are following them, conduct disorders, which is actually a personality disorder, wherein they are extremely cruel. Even as children, they're extremely cruel. They come out with animal cruelty, human cruelty. People who have conduct disorders, also have antisocial personalities. So all the serial killers, all the serial rapists, people who mutilate women after raping them. All of these things are very common in men. Mood disorders, where they can be extremely violent or extremely depressed. Violent disorders, wherein violence is a part of their behavior. All of these things are more common in men. So you see the stark difference. See, we have not listed drug abuse anywhere in women because of the percentage is extremely small. Whereas we have put it right on top, drug abuse and alcoholism right on top. Women psychopaths are very, very rare. We have only lady villains in our Hindi and Telugu serials where they want to kill children or strangle somebody. But actually in real life, it doesn't happen. So most of the psychopaths, most of the antisocial personalities are men, where, dowry deaths, simple dowry deaths, people who set their wife ablaze because of the dowry. People who stage accidents for their spouses, so that they can marry somebody else for more money. They're simple things. I'm not talking about big things. Simple things. See, a man is more capable of doing that. A woman can never, probably, they say her mindset will not allow her to pour petrol on her husband and set him ablaze, where a man can do it. Sorry to all the men out there, this is not to offend you or anything like that. It's just that we're talking about mindsets. That once you see, if you notice, men in the army are more than women in the army. It just goes to show that, the aggression and all of the basic inherent qualities of a man, they come in useful in certain professions. See, if you see construction workers, most of them are men because they have the brute strength to carry, big loads, right? Whereas women who carry equal number of loads are not even paid the same. Okay, so these are all the common mental illnesses in men. So this is Ted Bundy. He was a serial killer. Look how charming and handsome he is. 32 people he killed, never got caught till the very end. And he used to not only kill, but he used to also mutilate the bodies beyond recognition. That shows the level of his violence and hatred towards women. So here I'm just showing you some gender differences. Men are more likely to commit suicide. Women are more likely to contemplate suicide. I've mentioned this on several occasions during this lecture. Risk for self-harm, cutting yourself or banging your head on the walls, hurting yourself in some way whenever you're having a lot of tension or pressure. That risk is the same for men and women. All upbringing and social norms, they increase the vulnerabilities. So if you're bringing up a woman with less education, less opportunities, always told that you're less than a man and you have to get married to whoever says yes to you. You don't have the right to say no to a man, when you have for a marriage alliance. All these things increase the vulnerabilities. Women are more likely to also suffer from post-traumatic stress. That is, after suffering trauma, it could be a death of a husband, it could be domestic violence, it could be sexual abuse. So they have this trauma which is more than in men. Men, usually war veterans, they suffer from this kind of mental illness, but on a regular basis, very few of them actually have this kind of mental illness. Robin Williams, we all know him. He made the whole world laugh in all his films, and he led a miserable life. He was depressed for more than 23 years. And then finally he decided that his life was not worth living, and then he killed himself. It was one of the biggest tragedies because, here was a man who acted in films which made everybody smile. Mrs. Doubtfire, Patch Adams. So some of the most beautiful films ever made. This man has been a part of it. And to hear about his death was actually traumatic to the whole world, but he suffered from depression for a very long time. And nobody could even make out. Even during his shooting, people could never make out that he was depressed. So what are the consequences of mental health issues? First thing is access to care is denied for women. Only when they have to beg for money, beg for help. Even if a woman goes alone to seek some counseling or some mental health, even a prescription is not given to her. She's not admitted because unless you bring a man. In fact, if a woman wants an abortion, her husband has to sign it, or some man has to sign, father or husband has to sign. So that is the level of dependence that society also gives a woman. She cannot take her own decisions. Okay, the risk of rape, domestic violence, intimate partner violence is violence which is given by husband or spouse. Abuse, neglect, divorce, and abandonment. These are all consequences for women. Again, financial restrictions, social ostracization, and coercion. You're mentally sick, so you're weak, so you better do this. You have to listen to what I'm saying. You have to get up and eat this. You have to sleep at this time. So all these things